I, at a young age, was practicing 4 hours a day. I was going for it, being like, well, I'm going to prove how valuable I am by working hard. Let me prove to you how good I am. I just really know that my kind of athletic endeavors are a lot driven by this need to prove myself. Once you become an adult and nobody's giving you praise for it, what to do? That's on me at the end of the day. Success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. And my mantra was you've done this before. To win or to lose, I'm just going to keep working hard. Those were the toughest mental things I did, but still showed up every day. I was usually the first one in the water. Still held myself to that standard.
How have you trained your mental toughness? How do you gain that mental strength to keep pushing?
The thing I do to practice mental toughness is...
Welcome back to another episode. Today's guest is somebody I had the pleasure to train with. This person embodies competitiveness and mental toughness, and her dedication to her craft is something to admire. Without further ado, let's welcome a beast of an athlete and a hell of a coach, Lesley Murray.
Hi, Daniel.
How's it going, Lesley?
Very good. Thanks. How are you doing?
Absolutely. I'm doing very well, thank you. And thanks for being here. When I was thinking about this podcast, I thought about people like you, people that push barriers and are top performers, or to me that have the A personality and all of that. And as I mentioned in the intro, you are extremely competitive, and then you are both coach and athlete. But before we dive into that, can you tell me more about your journey or your story about how you became an athlete? I know that your family sort of involved a lot into the fitness world.
Yeah. So all of my roots start in swimming. Both of my parents met through swimming. And then my mom was our youth swim coach on our summer league team. And I say I'm one of 7 kids. And so we all ended up swimming for that swim team. And then from there, kind of all stemmed off into various other levels of intensity. So a couple of us swim club, most of us swim high school level. And then I'm the only one who ended up swimming in college. And so I like to think I'm her favorite, my mom's favorite, strictly for that reason. But then, from swimming, and a few of my other siblings tried out other sports, maybe they were rebellious or rejecting, the kind of I wouldn't say swimming was shoved down our throats, but it was definitely the only sport we were really introduced to. And so a few of my other siblings tried out other sports. I just never did. I was, found my friends early in swimming, at least on my club team. And that kind of locked me in, where I was really loyal to it. And then I was aiming to get a college scholarship. I did that. I feel very happy with that kind of route that I took. And then, after college, so I guess through college, I was kind of introduced to the gym culture, because our dryland trainer would, just put us through dryland workouts, but then also teach us how to use a barbell, or how to do lunges for 400 meters without, completely crying over it. And from there, basically after I retired from swimming, if you will, once college ended, I was still a happy swimmer, but I wasn't looking to go join a swim team. I was pretty shot of it. And so I started just going to the gym, and I joined Camp Gladiator, which mostly I just joined because it was work, right? I wanted to work for them. I had heard good things. I had heard that they needed people who were into fitness generally, and that was me at the time. And then pretty quickly, once I started doing and coaching for Camp Gladiator, I realized I still have this really itchy competitive spirit that I need to put somewhere. And luckily CG Games was the outlet then. And then it's kind of broadened my whole sphere as far as I feel comfortable weightlifting. I feel comfortable doing functional fitness, CG stuff. I feel comfortable doing Spartan things. And luckily for me, the kind of sport of functional fitness is really blown up lately. And so I feel really grateful for that. And I think the competitive spirit that I might have had while swimming, it really has bled into so many other areas of my life. But I feel all my roots are involved in swimming, socially and family wise, and kind of inner drive wise.
How was, you mentioned that you grew up with, you were one out of 7 siblings. How was growing up in such a big family, especially when every single one, it seems to be as athletic, as competitive, and all doing the same thing, in this case, swimming.
Yeah, so I also have my mom's family to compare to. So my mom she was the middle of 15, and they all,
Okay.
yeah, and they all swam and played golf as well. There were country club kids, like big time. And she never really discusses, like the comparison, I guess, in between them. And that's how I feel like it was with us, where certainly there's some of us who took swimming more seriously, or who were like more naturally talented at it, or less, or just less interested, or not, right? And so there's that type of comparison. But I really feel like grateful that there's a lot of families out there that it gets kind of toxic feeling when your parents have expectations, and then you're comparing yourself to your siblings all the time. I really feel like we were not totally free of that, but we were all different ages at different times and had different interests. And it probably would have been even healthier had we been exposed to other sports, right? But I also feel like for the summer league swim team is called Blue Wave. It is called Blue Wave, I should say. It's still running strong. My mom was a coach, and then there were 7 of us swimmers, all of different ages, kind of rotating through. And we were a family identity, like, oh, the Murrays are swimming, right? It wasn't so much like, oh, one kid is the swimmer and then the other kids are not into it, and again, we were all different levels of interest level in it, but I think it really helps to unify us in feeling proud of the team that we swim for, proud of our mom's contribution to it, which we still are. Like, she's a celebrity in that neighborhood, and it's I'm now the head coach of that team, and I'm just following her in her footsteps, right? So I'm very grateful for the kind of legacy that she's left behind there. But I also feel like collectively we all benefited from that in a lot of different ways. Mostly in who, our friends and the culture we grew up in, which was like a supportive community, whether it was swimming related or not, but I feel like swimming also is so great of a sport because it's not a zero-sum game, right? Like, if I go a best time, I might still get 4th place, but I still get a best time. And then it doesn't really matter who beat me or not. Right. And that's what's, I feel like in our kind of childhood culture at home, there wasn't a lot of like, oh, well, you won and I lost and whatever else. We never were catty with each other like that, as far as I remember. Maybe it's because I was always winning.
There you go.
Yeah, but I think too that it's just we all had successes mildly, right? Because in swimming, it's just kind of like, it's just a measurable thing. You can just keep going as so long as you show up and you have success.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it's a very interesting thing, the way that your parents raised you guys, especially your mom with the swimming team, and make it feel all like as you unite front, right? Just like all of you represented each one of you. It wasn't something like, okay, I'm even though swimming is a very individual sports, right? Because you're just competing against other swimmers, but most against yourself. Seems like you all had the same mission of being the best person, or being the best swimmer that you could be. And I was wondering, when it comes to competitiveness, if I know that it wasn't toxic, it was all rooting for each other, but sometimes I wonder if it was something more like internal fire. And again, I have 2 younger siblings. We never dabble into sports that much. I have a younger brother who's like 4 years younger, and and a sister who's 9 years younger than me. So there was never that. It was like a massive gap. But I've always felt I cannot let at least my younger brother to surpass me in any capacity, anything. I need to always be on top, right? So I just wonder, again, I don't know. I know that you cannot speak for your siblings, but internally, where you're like, it's almost like you were motivated to do better because your siblings were doing better, even though you're not competing against them, but you were competing. If they can push harder, then so can I.
Yes. And, it was almost never we were never competing directly against each other, and we were hardly ever training directly with each other. So maybe there would have been that had we had, been in the exact same like time slot for practice. I will say there is, so my two, so I'm the middle of the 7, and my 2 just older siblings, very talented swimmers, never showed up for swim practice as far as I remember. Like, just didn't care. I remember them, like every summer just being like, do I have to do this? Okay, fine, I will, and they would do it because their friends were doing it and stuff. But way different than me, where I, at a young age, was like, found my friends on club and was practicing 4 hours a day. I was going for it, right? And so then when it came to summer league, when we would all compete in essentially the same things, they're all just short sprints. My mom still brings it up today where she'll be like, well, Julia and Peter, they're just like the unreached potential, like they were so good already, and like their strokes were so good and blah, blah. And I always kind of poke at her like, excuse me, I'm the one who worked so hard, and who knows, maybe I would have been just as good as they had been had I not put in all the effort, and I would have just like floated through. I resent that thought every time I have it, because I'm like, that's not me. But I do think there was a part of me that at the time, she wasn't reflecting like that then, right? But they did set a high standard of like, they were impressive. They had a reputation of showing up and winning no matter how much they had trained or no matter what. And so I wasn't ever like consciously thinking like, I gotta swim fast so that I keep up with my sister. But it just I do remember being like, well, I'm going to prove how valuable I am by working hard and then proving how fast I can swim. Right. And I do think too, like, do you follow Enneagram at all? Do you know what that is? It's like a personality test. Okay. Yeah, it's like a personality test thing, but I'm an Enneagram 1, and I describe it a lot as like, okay, the tagline of Enneagram 1 is, I know how to do it best. Let me show you how. Right. Okay. And so that like kind of describes the teacher and coach in me, like why all these like natural instincts to do that. But I also think kind of inherent in the Enneagram 1 is like, let me prove to you how good I am. Right. Like how virtuous or how just valuable or how like what a good employee I am or whatever. Right. And that's just so true to my heart anywhere I go. Like, even my first jobs were always in food. Right. And I would always just be like, whatever you need me to do. Like, I'll sweep the floors. I'll, clean whatever. Just always the willingness to put in more work. Right. Which I don't see that in everybody else. I see that in a lot of people, and I see that in a lot of people in things that they care about. But mine is almost like anything I sign up for, I have to prove to you, not necessarily that I can do it the best of anybody of all time, just to prove to you that like I am the best. It's more like, let me prove to you that I'm willing to at least try so that I can go to sleep at night knowing I'm good and I'm good, right? Like my kind of virtue is really wrapped up in my work ethic. And so I think that the kind of comparison, I guess, to my siblings, if you will, has a lot to do with that. And maybe they feel similar. I know at least one of my sisters is also an Enneagram 1, and she's one of the ones who never showed up to swim practice. So hers might be expressed in a different way, right? But I just really know that my kind of athletic endeavors are a lot driven by this, like, need to prove myself, need to prove that, like, listen, I'm not scared of this feat. I'm not going to be bullied to the side because of it. I'm not going to shy away from it. And at the end of the day, you're going to know that I deserve respect for this, So that's from a young age. I think I knew that. And I think all my coaches did too. So they were like, chill out.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You said a couple of things that were really interesting. One, that 2 of your older siblings were very, very, very talented. Even, years and years later, you'll still remember those days, right? And that's something that I was talking to on one of the previous episodes with Duncan Smith. I don't know if you remember him, Tanner's brother.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about that. There are always going to be people that are going to be more talented than you in most cases, but talent only takes you so far. After that, it's almost like the it's like a level playing field, right? And in your case, I think that, and I don't know what you think about it, but it seems like that created some work ethic on you. Also, that feeling of insufficiency that I need to prove that I'm good. I need to prove that I'm great and I'm going to go for it. Which every now and then I wonder, for people who are like that, would you have rather had more talent and just relied on your talent, or because you didn't have as much talent, still talented, but not as talented as other people, it created that work ethic and that fire and that drive in you?
Good question. I mean, only really know one side of it, but I guess I see I now that I coach kids, especially, um, you see the other side of it, and it does seem like there's a threshold after you're a kid, and all these coaches and teachers and parents are giving you praise for that thing. Once you become an adult and nobody's giving you praise for it, what to do, right? Like, yes, you can hopefully have the internal validation that you are still talented, still able to do these things. But if you get into a workforce that doesn't reward you for it, or just are kind of like reliving your glory days only of the past skills that you have, and don't sign up for anything new to like prove that you have other skills. I do see it working against a lot of my friends, even where, yeah, it just looks like it doesn't feel very good. But I also, on the flip side of that, I see people who are mega talented and then they keep finding new avenues of talent, and it basically continues, right? And again, maybe that just has to do with like how they were raised and the kind of like internal versus external validation that they received at a young age to like feel good no matter what, right? Even with a level of talent that's higher than most. Um, and probably like the Instagram influencer culture, I think probably enables them to keep getting that external validation if that is what fuels them. But from my point of view, like the work ethic or the need to prove myself through that, it's like the only controllable thing, right? Like,
So totally.
again, yeah, like in any sport, but in swimming specifically, it's like, okay, to win or to lose, it's not just one, right? Like you can get so many different places and you still won if you got your best time, or even if you didn't get your best time, if you just maintained your time, like it's still a win, which took me a long time to realize. But I think that's uncontrollable. What somebody else does in the lane next to me, absolutely out of my control. How I react to it and how fast I can push myself is absolutely controllable. And I guess kind of like resting on my knowledge that I've worked as hard as I could to do it was always a peace of mind maker for me.
Yeah, that thing that you said, that you can only control so little, right? Your effort, your output, that's the only thing that you can control. What other people do, you cannot. How other people react, you cannot either. And I've always been a fan of like, hey, you cannot control the hand you're dealt, but you are in control what you to do with it, right? In your case, I cannot control the other swimmers swimming faster or slower than me. I can only control how I feel about myself, and finding that mental peace, that peace of mind that, hey, I did my best, even when I lost, even when I didn't get the result I got. That is that's a challenge. That's a challenge because even that I don't compete at that level. I run races. I do those other things that are not true. I'm not trying to win a race. I'm trying to improve my time or just improve my effort. It's still hard to find that peace of mind and say, hey, I did my best. I'll do better next time. How do you how do you keep yourself grounded and understand it is what it is. I'll do better next time, but I'm not gonna let this torment me. I'm not gonna let this uh, be in my head for a long period of time and just disrupt my life in some sense.
Right. I remember, so basically from like eighth grade through the first year, through senior year, my times in all my best events stay the same. I like maybe would go a best time by like a couple hundredths or something of a second, but not significant time drops, which is what I was looking for and what a lot of my teammates and friends were getting all over the place. And the goal is always to get a best time, especially at the end of the season, right? And I just wasn't. And I was super discouraged about it. And I remember I grew up Catholic, and I show up to this mass one day, and the priest opens his sermon saying, "Success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm." And I guess it's a quote from
Wow.
Winston Churchill. And I just remember, I wasn't that religious. Well, I was more religious, way more religious then than I am now. That's for sure. But I remember the time being like, "Whoa, that's God talking to me," you know. And I still think of those moments as like, I don't really go to church now, but it's those little just morale keepers, right? I wouldn't say boost, but like just necessary things we need to hear at the necessary times, right? Because I was absolutely just like, what is the point of swimming if I'm not going best times? Like, I'm putting in all these hours, and I like hanging out at practice with my friends, but I'm like putting all of this emotional energy into getting a best time. And when it doesn't happen, how do I do it? Especially as a teenager, right? I will say now as an adult, well, hold on, let me back up. So like after hearing that quote, it just felt so like peaceful to have that mindset of like, I'm just going to keep going these times. Like I'm going to keep pushing. And what I could have done is like changed coaches or changed my diet or changed, the amount of sleep I was getting, and all of those things like maybe would have led to changes, right? Probably would have led to at least different outcomes, maybe not necessarily better. But I felt pretty loyal to my coach. I felt loyal to my teammates. I did try different diets at different times, which looking back, were not performance enhancing in any way. It's like, oh, lose weight, like eat 1,500 calories when you're swimming 4 hours a day. Like that's baloney. So anyways, that was just like the mindset of the day, right? And we only have the information that we have. So when I think of how it has, I did all of that like plateauing and then just kind of like made peace with it. Like, all right, this is just how it's going to go. Luckily, my times were steady enough, and I was maintaining those times at least, that I still got a college scholarship, and was like sellable, if you will. So then my freshman year of college, like factors changed, right? I was in a new place. I was excited. I had a new coach, blah, blah. And ended up going best times in not even my usual best events. And then it kind of progressed from there. But then it was interesting how in the 4 years of college, even started off with a big high. I made it to nationals freshman year. And then sophomore year, I was completely mind like, oh no, how am I going to make nationals again? Because I was in such a high freshman year. I was like, how am I going to do it again? I have no idea. What am I going to do? And I spent so much time stressing out about it and then didn't get it. And that was, I remember crying myself to sleep, just being like, not like, why am I doing this? But more of a, like, again, this is out of my control. Right. And then I think feeling that emotional low coming back my junior year, I remember my mentality, I was a little bit not checked out so much, but just like, I need to find something more sustainable, because the amount of emotional turmoil I put myself through last season was not worth it, and not, obviously did not heed the results, right? Like being so nervous did not give me the results I wanted. And then also not sustainable. Like I can't just be dreading swim practice every day and also like expecting myself to perform to like my scholarships level of performance. So I remember junior year, I came in and my mantra was like, you've done this before, right? Like you did it 2 years ago. Doesn't really matter if you do it again, right? Like luckily the time has already been set. Who cares, if you don't do or don't make it, like life will go on, right? Just like it did the year before when I didn't make it, life will go on. And also like every swim practice, I'd just be like, well, this swim practice will end, right? Like even when it gets hard, it's just like, well, this will end too, right? We all get so stressed in those moments of, like when is this marathon's training season going to end? And like, you just feel like you're slogging away, and all of it's going to come to an end, right? Like we're a step closer to it every day, right? And so I think that was really helpful to like kind of get me through the season. And it sounds really pessimistic to just be like, I was just like waiting for it to be over. But it just made me way more patient with the process of like, oh, well, this season will come to an end and we'll see what happens. And I was so much more relaxed and again, not really like hopeful, but just kind of like, I show up every day to swim practice and I swim really as hard as I can. And then when I go to the meet, I'm just going to swim as hard as I can, like I do every day at swim practice. And then whatever happens will happen. And I ended up dropping like 6 seconds in my best event in my 200 fly and got 5th place at nationals. And like, it was a big deal. Right. And I was just like, good, cool. Right. Like it wasn't this like thrill. It was just kind of like, that's what my body knew how to do. Of course, And then senior year, I kept with that mantra. And I'm really grateful for that kind of roller coaster of college because even though, again, it doesn't sound like the most like inspiring mindset to have where I'm just kind of like, yeah, just going to sit back and keep rolling. But again, that baseline I had kind of built all through my childhood of like, I'm just going to keep working hard. And whatever results come from it is what happens, right? That has been my saving grace mentally, where I step up to the plate and in almost any competition I do. I haven't done any competitions where I've like not practiced the things. I guess triathlons are the one thing that recently I'll do simply because my brother's doing it or my friend dared me to do it or whatever. And I don't really care about triathlon. That's the other nice thing about it is like emotionally, I'm not very wrapped up in how I do in them. But I'll step up to the plate of it and just be like, well, I swim every week. I bike every week. I run every week. I guess we're just going to do all 3 of those in a row. And it makes me sound bored with it, but it really helps me to just like go to sleep the night before and just kind of be at peace with it. And the difference, I guess, is like with CG Games, which you and I have both done, I am really excited by that. And I'm on a team, which is unusual, right? Like all growing up, sure, you're on a swim team, but it's really an individual sport. But CG Games, like, oh, we got to like really work together to make this happen. And it just makes me so much more like invested in what we're doing. And then movements are always just like fun and there's a lot of variety to them too. And so even though, yes, I have a harder time going to sleep before those nights, I think the amount of reps we put in, like the training groups you and I have done together, but also like the training I do injury prevention on my own before that too. It's just like, you just put in the reps. And then on the day of, I could just put in those exact same reps and feel confident in it, right? I don't have to like blow anybody's mind by doing something like Superman, right? Just step up like I stepped up 2 days ago and everything will be okay. So,
Yeah. You said several interesting things in your story. Well, one, that quote is very, very powerful. I think you said success is going failure after failure without losing enthusiasm. That's something I struggle with, and I think most people struggle with that. Because even though we fail more times than we succeed, it's hard to recover and to keep the same. You really need to be loving what you're doing, or in your case, I think what happened to you in college was we focus so much on the destination and on the journey that when we don't get to that destination, whether because we have high expectations or we are impatient, then we are losing the enthusiasm, we are losing the motivation to keep going just because we are not getting there. And you might have said that your story is not inspiring by any means, but it's raw, it's real, it's what actually happens. Your brain, your body got completely exhausted and drained from the constant pressure you put on yourself. Nobody else was putting that pressure on you, but it was you against you. And at some point you said, well, this is not sustainable. I mean, I'm just going to collapse if I don't change my mindset. And I think that mindset, if I'm going to do my best, and whatever happens, happens. Which I do have a question when it comes to that, because I do struggle a lot when I never feel like I'm doing my best, or because to me it's a foreign concept. Like, okay, what does it really mean to do your to do your best or to put it all out there, because I always feel I could have gone slightly faster or I could have pushed more. There's always that thing in the back of my mind. It's like there's something that I haven't untapped in my brain, because you hear elite athletes and coaches say, whenever you feel tired or whenever you feel that you cannot go any longer, you still have something left in the tank. That once we pass that discomfort on those thoughts of I'm exhausted, I want to slow down, I want to stop. When you tap into that, when you overcome that, whatever mental huddle you have, then you discover that. Have you experienced that in your life?
Yeah. And I think I totally agree with you that it's hard to know, like even in a workout, right, where it's a variety of things, or maybe we're doing like Tabatas type things, right, where it's like, okay, 20 seconds of work. And you think, okay, this 20 seconds of work, I'm going to like go all out, right? And then even at the end of it, you're like, could I have even gone faster? Because I know that the next 20 seconds is coming up, right? And it is really difficult. And that is one of the reasons why, like growing up swimming, it's a very much endurance sport the way you train for it. But swim meets, none of my events were longer than 2 minutes. Like it's a 2 minute, as fast as you can in 2 minutes type of deal, right? And so I take that for granted when I consider myself like, oh yeah, I can like keep going forever. And it's like, actually, you really have to pace yourself, you know? And I'm pretty reasonable at pacing myself for, you know, like if I do like I said, a triathlon, and, you know, it's such a joke to me that they call it a sprint triathlon. It takes over an hour. Um, but,
Well, I mean, a full Ironman takes like 9 to 12 hours. So.
I know, right. I know. Yeah. So that's why too, like when I do races like triathlons is just like the easiest one that most people will have like thought about, but I shouldn't say it's easy. It's not easy physically. I just mean easiest to reference. Right. But it's, people are like, oh, you know, it's just a sprint. And I'm like, it's not just a sprint. This is hard. Like it's hard. And because it's shorter, that means I'm going to give myself less of an excuse to go slower or like pace myself. Right. I'm going to try to find that faster pace, which does like definitely for me, like makes me charge at it. Right. And again, that's why I think I've gravitated towards events like CG Games, because it might be a 25-minute event, the prelims event. Right. But every minute you're essentially changing activities. And I like to find that level where you're talking about like, okay, I could not have gone faster on that because I'm like totally pooped afterwards, but also um, moving as efficiently as possible based on like practice of those movements, right? Like that's always a huge thing for me is, especially these functional movements, like, okay, how to get onto the ground for a bear crawl, could set up my feet a certain way so that I slide right into it. And the more practice I give for myself there, that's where I find the like, am I proud of my max capacity? If I did all those things that I possibly could, right? But then you realize too, there's like somebody else who's thought about it more, or like diagrammed it, where like, oh, but if you put your foot here, you know, and it's like, okay, at the end of the day, we can get as scientific as we want to, but you know, what feels good, right? But I do think those like kind of shorter events for me really help find that barometer of, am I working my absolute hardest? Like, can I feel proud after this knowing I did it, right? And I have definitely shied away from like Olympic distance triathlons or half marathons and marathons even. Or I'm doing this event called Swim Run. I did one back in November and I'm doing one again in September. And it's you swim and then you run and then you swim and you run, and you're like swimming in your shoes and running with your wetsuit on and stuff. And it's very fun, and it's not like the most competitive environment. Like it's meant to be kind of just an adventure race. But even that, I remember this past November, I was doing it with my training partner, Sarah, and we trained together like same pace because we're all chatting the whole time, right? But then when it comes to race day, and I know she has done a lot more longer runs than I have done. She does like mountain half marathons and stuff like that, just visit her friends. And so we start running and she's a little bit ahead. We start swimming, we're equal. And then we start running again and she's like just a little bit ahead of me. And the whole while I'm like, you know, I could pick it up. I could pick it up right now, like, and try to get her. But then she's just going to pick it up. And, like, I'm having a good time. I don't need to push myself too much, right? Versus like if it had been an event like CG Games, like I'm not sitting easy at CG Games. I'm driving after it, right? So it's all just a matter of kind of mindset and community there, I think, or a culture there. But I do think that feeling afterwards of swim run, I was like, I could have gone faster. I know that for sure. But I had a fun time. I was like out in nature, like it was all good, right? But if I had done that at CG Games, I would have been like, what is this? Was a waste of my time and money. Like I should have gone harder, right? And so I really find that it is difficult to pace yourself on anything longer than that. Anything that you have to like legitimately slow yourself down for to make it sustainable. I don't have a whole lot of experience with that triply. Like I see it in endurance athletes, and then they try to up their pace, and that sounds so hard. And also so boring. Like it's just like even you running you ran a full marathon, or was it half?
Yeah, I did my first full 2 months ago.
Nice. Okay, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so even that, I'm just like, that's so hard. And also, so why did you do it?
Mentally was one of the toughest, if not the toughest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
I enjoy running, but again, I was running injured, whatever. But yeah, it's just, especially when you're halfway or even slightly halfway. I tell this story to a few people. After mile 18, the bottom of my feet were in so much pain. And then I was like, okay, I have 8 miles left. 8 miles left. I don't know if I can keep going, but I cannot. The way that I saw it was because I was running a very slow pace because I had the injury. But if I saw it, okay, if I counted down as miles, it's a single number, so 8 to 7 to 6 to 5. But if I count how much time I have left, like an hour and a half, there's no way I can comprehend that. So I can see how you and so many other people see it's like it's a long time just doing an activity, and mentally it is I love it. In fact, if I would rather do a half marathon than a mile PR. Even though mile PR is like 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and I'm exhausted, I'm done. And it's the level of exertion, the level of effort you use. In your case, your swimming was like a couple minutes, right? Going all out, give your best, and then after that you're just like, I'm exhausted, I'm done. And I think that's why I guess you learn how to balance or to pace yourself, because you know what your max effort feels like, and then how you can extend that when it comes to a CG game activity, which is like anywhere between 15 and 25 minutes. So it's like a very interesting thing how by doing both, you can sort of tell this is how I should pace myself. If I go harder, I'm definitely going to crash, halfway there. And if I go slower, I will finish the race feeling I didn't do my best. So it's tricky. It's definitely tricky.
Definitely. And I think you put it right. Like we actually just did our mile time this past week with Jordan's group. And we had done it a couple months ago, but I was like feeling it's really sore and stuff like that. And so this one was the first one that I had done in a while fresh. And you're right. I was like, during it, I was like, crap, like this is hard. But then you realize afterwards, like you said, it lasts 6 or 7 minutes. And it's like, well, now it's done. Versus running a marathon, I'm like, that's a lot of tolerance. Like it's not just pain tolerance, it's the boredom tolerance, it's the intensity tolerance. But you're right, the intensity tolerance of running the mile, it's like that's more than a 100. Like you really have to mentally just sign up for what you're doing, and then whatever your pace, I'm sure even if you were like, I'm going to go easy for a marathon, it's like even that you have to, there's a tolerance there,
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest challenge for a lot of people, and this is related to a question I've been meaning to ask you. One of the main issues with endurance athletes, you're going to be a long time in your thoughts, in your head. When you're running or biking or whatever for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, that's a lot of time with you and your thoughts. And a lot of people cannot handle that, because again, we all have that inner voice, that self-doubts, those fears, those negative stories we tell ourselves, and that could be hard to deal with. And to me, that's where the mental toughness comes into place. And I feel that you as an athlete, you are, extreme. You have like a strong, you're strong mentally, and to me, again, I feel that most elite athletes are that way as well. But it's not something that you were born with. I think that you train your mental toughness, and to me, that's the key difference between those who are truly elite and truly make it, and those who cannot get over the hump, just because their brains were it's just they believe that they can go any harder, or or they or they just let those stories to overtake. They are basically, I would say, what they're not reaching their full potential, right? So in your case, how do you train, or how have you trained your mental toughness? How do you gain that mental strength to to keep pushing, especially when it comes to physical pain, when you know that you're in pain, that you're exhausted, that your legs are burning, and you're out of breath, but you need to keep going?
Yeah. So I'll say first is like, this is just a small aspect of it, but it's something that I've been trying to practice a lot lately, is like you could call it gratitude, but it's also just like kind of thrilling in what our bodies can experience, like the stimulus that we put them through, right? Whether it's everyday fitness or hard competitions, it's like, we have this comfort crisis that's going on. And we also like, it's just a natural way to like want to chill out at the end of the night and cozy up and all this stuff, right? And you think, okay, that wasn't how it always was, right? But it's also not how I want to spend 100% of my time, because we know what that kind of lifestyle that leads to, and does not seem appealing, right? But let's be real, like after I swim at Barton Springs and it's cold, the hot shower is awesome, right? And it's like, this is a part of life, right? But that awesome hot shower would not taste as good if it weren't for the hard thing I had just done right before it, right? And so most of us know that kind of dichotomy of like, it's worth it, right? Like I never regret a workout. But it really is just active in the moment of when I'm training and my lungs are on fire, and you just feel like, oh crap, he's asking me to do another one. God. And kind of relishing in that feeling of my heart is pumping so fast and my skin is tingling and my my eyes are itching because I'm in the chlorine or whatever. And just feeling like this is what it means to be alive. It's like to also have this amount of stimulus, right? And yes, it's uncomfortable. And yes, I don't want it to last forever, but I also can appreciate it as it comes to me, as this is a really vital part of life, is to feel all the things that your body can feel, and then all the emotional things and the hormonal things that can come from it too. It's like, it's not all bad. If you think about exercise, like, yes, it's hard, and yes, it's like takes a lot of discipline, but it's also just really thrilling at the end of the day too. It's like, why do we go on roller coasters? It gets your heart rate up. So does exercise, so I try to think of it like, I guess a gratitude practice, but just kind of like reflecting on what's going on in your body and being like, all right, this is kind of cool, even though it's hard, but another thing I do to practice mental toughness, and this is like very on the nose, I guess, is I do deep end fitness. I know I've talked to you about it before, but I need to get you there. Deep end fitness is this program that's essentially in the water, and we do mental resilience and physical fitness stuff. Like we walk on the bottom with dumbbells. We do underwater crossovers where you go in underwater holding your breath. So we do a lot of breath work stuff. But a lot of it, even the fitness stuff, is in the name of kind of surpassing that mental voice, that little like, stop, this is hard, right? Like that little voice that is always going to talk to you, kind of approaching it. And what's great about the water is it helps you tap into that super fast. And so I go to a class, and also teach a class every Sunday called Deep End Fitness. And then we attach to that is this sport called Underwater Torpedo League, which kind of puts all those principles into action. And we're essentially playing rugby or football underwater. And it sounds really intimidating, but it's very fun.
It
It's like sharks and minnows.
intimidating.
Yeah.
It does sound intimidating. I can definitely see how the deep end workout of fitness really creates that mental toughness, because you're putting yourself in an environment where your life is at risk in some degree, because you can only hold your breath for so long, right? And that can be, and that's very, very scary, by the way. And that's
It
I
is
have
for
big
all of us. Yeah.
I have big issues with water. But I think that every now and then I hear about that. I'm curious. Well, maybe I should try to do that and see how it goes. Obviously, I don't have that much endurance or lung capacity at this point, but I can see how overcoming that fear, right? The fear of just uh, drowning yourself, can help you overcome other things, new fears that you have in your life are going to be seen as like almost nothing compared to what you just went through, which is swimming and doing those kind of things. And that story reminded me of, again, another story I shared with Duncan Smith. He used to be in the Coast Guard. He used to train the Coast Guard, and one of the exercises he did, or one of the drills, he was in the program to be one of those rescuers, the when somebody's drowning, whatever, and then you are flying with the helicopter and drops whatever. Well, he was mentioning that the day that he actually quit was the day that they put them to just run miles and miles and miles and miles, and then they were in the water, in this pool that can recreate waves and all these, things that you would experience out there in nature. But one of the exercises was just to hold this rubber brick with one hand and just have the other one. And he tells the story that at some point he's just sinking, right? And then he knows he needs to get up there and get some air. But his mind was saying, hey, just go to sleep, right? And then, no, I need to keep pushing it. And then he just, you know what? I'm just going to go to sleep. And next thing he remembers, he just outside of the pool, and they brought him back. But that really, really actually crushed me. And that's, I guess, the scary part of what you're doing now. In that case, they were training to actually be the best of the best, because their other people's lives depend on that. But it's a very similar thing what you guys are doing, but without that risk. That any moment when you feel that you need to go up there, there's no shame of, hey, I don't have to stay there for a long period of time. I don't have to drown myself just to prove something.
Right. And I don't have to drown myself to keep my job. Yeah, that's
exactly
for sure. And that's honestly, that's one of the reasons this whole program was kind of commercialized, because it was born of these two Marines who realized how great it was for not, and I should say, we don't drown people like that. We do much smaller amounts of it. We don't have them run for miles beforehand. It's all, meeting you where you're at, right? But helping people make progress with, we do brick shows, right? So we have a rubber brick in your hand and we try to go across the pool. But if you can't do it, we're there to help you, right? We're not going to let you drown. We're not going to let you go to sleep. So the reason they saw a lot of success with their soldiers coming back who were dealing with PTSD, and they realized, okay, this like safe environment, this like controlled environment of, okay, we're going to do 10 reps of this underwater breath hold thing. If you come up early, that's okay too, right? But having just practice, basically that regular practice of approaching that inner voice of, I need to breathe right now, or I need to get to the edge right now, right? And kind of approaching it and just realizing, okay, I gotta calm down, right? Very similar to meditation. If you've ever meditated, it's like that voice that's like, hey, what about that thing over there? Let's look at it. Or what about that song in your head? Let's think about that. And just letting it go by, right? Like not trying to squash it too much, but just like cool. That's there. That's in the back of my mind now. I can think about that later, and just letting it be more peaceful, right? That's at least the main benefit I get out of the class, and I know that that's why they were like, we need to commercialize this to everybody, because for fitness reasons, but also for mental resiliency, it's like just practicing that mindfulness in this tank of it, like put you in there, right? Like sometimes it's hard. I don't know if you meditated up, but it's like very difficult to meditate when there's all these different things happening around you, or when your phone's nearby or whatever. And it's like, as soon as you get into the water, you got to think about what you're doing. Like you can't just be like out in la la land, right? And so I really appreciate that they kind of expanded it to, approach everybody with it. But it's also, very much, I would call it very approachable, even for people who are, especially for people who are scared of the water or think that they can't swim. There's a lot to be gained from coming to these classes. So
That's very interesting thing that you're saying there. Because yeah, I've tried to do meditation or mindfulness at home, and I'm so bad at it. So I'm so bad at it. I know that it takes practice, it takes patience, and I've dropped it a few times. But especially for me, that I'm a very anxious person, I'm trying to ground myself and find that maybe with this deep end fitness, I might do that. But there's another aspect of the deep end fitness that is calling my attention. And just yesterday, I released a new episode with a guy I used to go to college with. That guy have run like 4 half Ironmans. That's 70.3, which you swim for like 1.2 miles. I think that you bike for 57, and then you run a half marathon. And he got me excited about me trying to do that. And I remember telling him, "Hey, dude, I know I can run. I know I can bike. I don't mean biking 57 miles is quite a long distance because you're hours and hours on the bike. Well, the swimming part is what scared me. I know how to swim to some degree to survive, but when it comes to really swim and be comfortable in the water, that is something that if I ever want to reach that goal, because again, one of my life goals would be just to prove to myself that I can do it, is to do like a full Ironman. That the overcoming that water issue is big, and I guess I need to find avenues and way how to do it. And I guess this one could be like an early thing that I could be doing before start training for the actual race.
definitely. And I would recommend it too, because I know I work at a swim school, and there's a lot of adults who come in for the intro to lap or intro. They're totally beginners swimming. And I don't stay that late at night to teach them, but most of my coworkers and most of the people who I see coming in for those classes, they're, totally willing to try this new thing, which is awesome. And I'm so admiring of how out of their comfort zone they're getting, right? But there is still this, like speed swimming is what I've learned it's called, is swimming on top of the water, like what you see at the Olympics, right? Speed swimming, which is what I've done my whole life. There's this inherent anxiety with it, because it's like, okay, yes, you're learning to be more efficient and you're trying to learn to be calm, but there's so many things to think about as you're doing it, right? Like, okay, if you're trying to learn perfect freestyle, you got to have a high elbows, and you got to have a high elbow catch, and you got to pull through. And then not to mention the other strokes, which are, like even more thought process. And I feel like the baseline that is missing from a lot of swim programs that now I'm starting to implement in the programs I teach is how to be calm in the water, right? Like how to, first of all, just like enjoy being underwater and realizing that like, okay, can't be here forever, but I can be here for a little while and not freak out, right? But then also how to just like move your body in the water in a way that makes you feel safe. Like I can get to the edge of the pool no matter what kind of orientation I'm in, right? But then also just like, okay, if I wanted to get there with this arm, I can get there, or I can get there with my feet, or I can whatever, like learning how to propel yourself, right? And so that's the type of stuff that we do at Deep End Fitness. That's just like, just a little like more isolated, I guess, than at a swim practice, where at a swim practice, you might be learning about all these different concepts, like, okay, how to move across with your legs kicking this way, and we do some of that at Deep End Fitness, but a lot of it is like, okay, how to tread, like how to just like stay at the top of the water with the least amount of effort as possible. And I feel like that's a really valuable baseline to approach. But there's also, it's nice because there's not like, oh, you have to learn that in order to go into swimming. It's like you could come to one class and still glean something, right? Or come to many and just feel all the more prepared for whatever swimming endeavor you're going to. So,
Yeah, that would be the only reason why deep. I can once again, I can see the all of the benefits from deep end fitness, and that is most. I would be doing that mostly for gaining that mental toughness, being more um, facing fears, or being or having like an easier time facing and overcoming fears that are not related to water, because I already did something very hard. So anything else that comes after seems to be a lot easier or less scary. But for the swimming part, which again, I know that I don't need to run a triathlon. I don't, but I don't know. It's just something that I feel like I want to do hard stuff, just to prove to myself that I can. And the swimming part is the only thing, again, that is preventing me from even thinking about it.
I'm doing the CapTex try in
Okay.
May if you want to do that one.
And so that one is how much swimming in that one?
It depends. So there's the sprint level. Actually, there they have the rookie, then they have the sprint, and then they have the Olympic. So rookie is, I think, only 400 meters of swimming, and
Okay.
then 12-mile bike, 2-mile run. No problem for you, Daniel.
I know that one is well, swimming
Yeah,
part. Yeah,
I know. That's what I mean. Is like find something approachable swimming wise, and then just build up from there. Because like Ironman level, that's gonna be hard even if you're a good swimmer. But there's a lot of ways to step into swimming that distance without
and
going the whole full. Even though but that's what is going to be hard for you because you've already done the marathon,
yeah.
and so you're like, all right, well, my training is already set for that, but you got to take the time to catch the other areas up and find a good bike that you're comfortable on.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do have like a regular bike. I don't have one of those. I don't know, 5 grand, 10 grand.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
bike. So it's gonna take me definitely longer. But when it comes to marathon, I cannot imagine myself, even if I have to run half marathon after swimming, after biking. Again, I know people take their time, people stop, people doing this, but it's all about the patience. What you're saying, and do things without, I guess, expectations. When you said doing a rookie triathlon is great because it's like a stepping stone. Me, on the other hand, I'm very impatient. I just want to go for the whole thing, and obviously end up failing by either not doing it or by getting overwhelmed by it. So,
Or getting injured. Yeah.
which again, I have plenty of
Uh-huh.
experience of it getting injured because I want to go hard all the time, and it's tough. It's tough to understand and to be patient, and to trust the process. And I guess do you see that a lot with your with the people you coach? In that sense, what is the biggest what is the biggest flaw or the biggest weakness that you see usually in your athletes? It could be mental, it could be something that you know that if they just fix that small thing, right, they can be and they can get so much better, because that could apply for other areas of their life.
Right. I definitely, so most of the, well, so I coach a lot of kids, right? Youth. And then I also, now that I'm teaching for Deep End Fitness, I've been coaching at least once a week a lot of people about this underwater variety of things, right? We do a variety of movements, but it's all based on under the umbrella of kind of tapping into the mind as well. But then personally, I'm also a personal trainer to a lot of people who they're not training for anything in particular. They're just trying to stay fit, right? But all of them, and then a lot of our friends who we have like trained in our group that trains for CG Games, the main thing that I see that their shortcoming is trusting themselves, right? Like I feel so grateful that I grew up with swimming, and I had, every weekend we had like a swim meet where I would swim 7 times, trying to do my best putting forth my best. And then sometimes it heated the results I wanted, and sometimes it didn't. And I'm so grateful for that, even though at the time it was like a big old hassle to get to the swim meets all the time and to like do it again. Okay, I'll do it again, but it just gives you such regular practice in this, like stepping up to the plate, right? And then realizing, okay, like I said, my body's going to do what it did last time, or my body's it's trained for this. So I'm just going to put it out on the table now, right? And so that's the thing, even with the people I train who are not training for anything, when I introduce a new move to them, it's always just that like, oh, I'm not sure. I don't trust that like my body will cooperate. And sometimes I have reason to believe that, right? Where it's like, okay, if it's a balance move, they're like, I don't really ever do this. So like, how can I be sure it's going to happen? And I'm like, well, we got to start somewhere, That's always the kind of helpful go-to is like in 3 weeks, this is going to be no problem, right? You're going to think of this as just like walking, right? And then I think it too with the people, it's a variety level of athletes who show up to Deep End Fitness, but with everybody, it's always hardest on the first day. And then it doesn't really, let's be real, like training for things doesn't really become easy, right? Like one of my clients, she always is like, oh, I'm so sore and tired after that workout. I must be out of shape. And I was insulted when she says that, like, I'm your trainer. You're not out of shape right now. Like, but I know she thinks that this biofeedback of, oh, I'm super sore after this thing, and therefore my body wasn't equipped to handle it. And I'm like, do you realize I'm sore every day? Every day of my life, I'm sore from a workout I did the day before, right? And you hope to not be sore from the same stimulus. Like let's say I did a mile paced run at this pace and I'm really sore from it. Next week, if I did the same thing, maybe I'd be less sore from it, right? That's what you hope for, but that's not also how the body works, especially with a busy lifestyle. And if you've got kids and stuff, and it's like, you got to sleep right, you got to eat right to get all the like totally progressive stuff. But, I just really find, and then with a lot of our friends who step up to the plate during CG games, I think especially because it's a community they've cared about for so long, like everybody's been training together. It's usually the thing that they're training for the whole year, which is true for me as well. We just care about it a lot, right? And so when they step up to the plate and they just expect, maybe they're expecting like fireworks to go off and like something crazy is going to happen because I've been training this way. Or maybe they're so anxious about like, what if something goes wrong, right? Like, what if I haven't actually been training for that little thing being in that place instead of that place, and I have to go pick it up from someplace I didn't expect. Or, you could roll your ankle. There's a lot of unknowns, especially when you're doing obstacle course type stuff, right? But it's like just trusting that in the moment, your improvisation is going to work out for you, right? And it's at least going to get you through safely and soundly instead of backfiring, so that's definitely the shortcoming I notice in all people, and I was recently consulting with a mom of a swimmer I have who she swims club and summer league. She's dealing with balancing both, and it's a hard schedule to uphold, but it's also mentally just hard as a club swimmer to be like, oh, then I'll go swim for yet another swim team in the summer and like up the amount of time you're spending in the pool. It's really difficult, especially when you have like your core group of friends at one place and not at the other. And so I was telling her that I was like, I'm just so grateful that we have the capacity to keep doing these hard things, right? Like just stepping up to this plate again and again and again, and then realizing how well it reflects later, right? Like as an adult, I'm the head coach of that swim team that I grew up swimming for, right? The main reason I'm still interested in coaching there is because of all the good feelings I got there, because it was summer league and I was usually winning well enough, right? And it's, I just feel so grateful for like those small little wins, which I don't really, what did they count for? They weren't like I was winning the Olympics or anything, right? But it's just these little ticks of you stepped up to the plate, oh, you got some validation. You stepped up to plate again. Oh, good. You did it. Right. As opposed to, like I said, with club swimming, I felt so like I stepped up to the plate and sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. But at least my body got practice at it again and again and again. So both those things really balance each other out. And I feel like even as an adult, we really need to, in order to gain that trust, the biggest thing you can do is just have regular practice at stepping up to some sort of plate that's maybe sometimes it's always going to give you that high validation. Like, yep, you did it. Yep, you did it. Like a workout, right? Like both of us go to workouts that we're completing most of the things. Cool. That will give you that confidence, right? But then sometimes stepping up to the plate that has maybe higher stakes or maybe just a higher level of challenge that you won't necessarily live up to. Like I can say, even at Deep End Fitness, there's, if you think of it as a comparison, the static breath hold that we do where we're just like laying our heads down in the water and holding our breath and seeing how calm we can stay. I'm nowhere near the highest breath holder. And it's so helpful to be like, oh yeah, I might be the fastest at this other thing, but I'm definitely not the best at this thing. Right. And so it's a good balance, but it's also just so beneficial to feeling about that feelings about quality over quantity. Right. So specifically with the breath hold, it's really easy to be like, okay, but even though I didn't hold my breath longer than the last time I held my breath, I actually, my self-talk was very calm and positive instead of being like, oh, you got to do this, how dare you not hold your breath for as long as you did last time. And I think it's only positive when you think about the kind of habits of self-compassion and stuff that come along with all this hard stuff we put ourselves through. And if I will say, I'll combat that by saying like, not every workout has to be a super hard workout, right? I know I've fallen into that before as well, but I totally agree. It's like, yeah, if I wasn't challenged by any of these workouts, like where would my progress come from? And so last night I did a will workout and I was like totally burnt out at the end of it. And thank God I was, right? That does not mean I'm not in shape. It means I was pushing my boundaries, right? And so, as you said, it's a valuable tool to keep coming back to. And it's also, yeah, that trust to know that you can do that and you can keep doing that. And you just get more familiar, even though it is still hard, you just get more familiar with, again, maybe it's like a roller coaster thing where it's like, yes, it's a roller coaster that's scary, but you know exactly when the turns are coming. So it makes it a little bit more sustainable.
Yeah, thanks. No, that makes absolutely sense in that regard. So, as a closing question, Lesley, and I've been enjoying this conversation quite a lot. What has been the either the toughest competition or the hardest thing that you have had, either physically, mentally? What is that extremely challenging thing that you had to go through?
Yeah, good question. I do feel like I've really only competed in things that I've very much enjoyed over the past couple of years. And there's something about that like with CG games, those are some of the toughest physical, like I push myself more on that than almost anything else, but it's because I care about that. For whatever reason, it's usually the community and the teammates that I'm with too. And so that doesn't make it feel like as much of a challenge somehow, because I'm like, oh, but this is so fun and I love it, versus I really do how I described that kind of adversity I created for myself my sophomore year of college. I just remember, and really, really like the training months leading up to championship season in college, specifically sophomore through senior year. There was something about them that it must be impacted by the fact that it was like the end of my career. So I was like, okay, let's just get through it. Let's just finish it. I was on scholarship, which I did not have any doubt that I was going to see through. And so I was kind of working, right? It became this job feeling. And I'm sure a lot of athletes feel this way, even pros, where yes, it's something you enjoy. And yes, like I feel really grateful that I came out of it, loving swimming still. But it was a job at the end of the day. And at the beginning of the day, really early. And yeah, just those, I think about some of the sets we used to do during those practices, and you just, it never felt like doubt. It just felt like total, like I was saying, tolerance building. But it never got to the point of like, oh, I love this. Like, this is so fun, you know? Like in growing up in clubs, sometimes it would physically be fun. But college, I think I also like kind of dug myself into a hole socially with my teammates. I was kind of a like self-prescribed team mom, even though nobody really wanted a team mom. And I was just a grump. I was like really grumpy with my classes and stuff too. And again, afterwards, like I feel good about my college experience. It was fine. But the one thing I did myself a disservice with was like not like making friends with my teammates more. And honestly, a lot of that had to do with I was being very judgmental of their work ethic. Because like sophomore year, when I didn't make nationals, half the people who I swam next to who would like sit out half the set, they were making nationals. And guess what? It's because they were relaxed and they were having fun with it. But I just really held that against them. And that's on me at the end of the day. But it didn't help make those practices any easier. And so, but I was still, it's 4 hours a day of like the hardest work, way harder work than you'll ever put into in a 2-minute swim at a swim meet, and so I really feel proud of those months that I put in, proud that I made them through, and again, like still coach swimming now and like love to spread the joy of it, because I do know a lot of my friends who did the same thing and just like haven't touched the water since, which kind of sucks. But I also feel those were the toughest mental things I ever did, because I think I was over the real like thrill of swimming and into the kind of grind of it. And but still showed up every day. Was usually the first one in the water, and still held myself to that standard. And I feel very grateful that I set that standard for myself and got to practice it every day, because again, I think now when I go to every workout I go to in the day, do I think about, should I go to this workout or not? Like, no, I set it on the calendar, I'm going. And I know a lot of adults who don't have practice in that, and then, they don't meet their goals. And so I just feel super grateful that I was kind of like tied into that discipline, if you will.
Yeah, one of the things that your story reminded me is that I heard, and actually you hear this quite a lot from elite athletes, whether they're playing basketball, football, even though these guys are making millions and millions of dollars and they're well paid, they feel that the sport they used to love, football, basketball, anything like that, now they don't love it anymore. They do it because it's their job. I'm not having fun because now there's an added pressure that if I don't perform, if I don't do this, then it takes the fun out of it. So, I mean, I'm glad that you were able to just turn the page and still enjoy swimming and doing all these other kind of sports, because I think that is something that probably a lot of maybe college athletes experience, that after they finish their college and they don't go to pros, they stop doing what they used to love, just because of the self-imposed pressure of, I need to perform, I need to actually get better so I can justify either what I'm getting or my scholarship.
Right. And yeah, I feel really grateful for that summer league swim team, because I needed a summer job, I would always come back and coach for it. And then again, now I'm still coaching for it. And it's the fundamentals, right? You're teaching 6-year-olds how to enjoy freestyle. And that's totally different than, training for nationals and stuff. And so I feel very grateful to have had that set up for myself, but also like I would endorse anybody who's feeling like, oh, I used to love baseball, but no, that's not for me. And if you have like just difficulty untying yourself from the like trauma that you've experienced through it, right? Whether it's like really extreme trauma or not, like mine, I would not describe it as extreme trauma, but it's definitely like little daily micro traumas of like, I don't want to do this thing, and yet I'm going to do it, and then doing it for 4 hours. Like that's a hard place to sit in. Whereas most college kids are not sitting there, right? They're doing what they want to do. And so finding like not a complete different, but like finding an access point to that thing that you used to love that's just way lower stakes, and then offering yourself to it, it really helped me just create like this healthy relationship with my sport, with swimming. Yeah.
I love it. Yes, basically just have lower expectations, take one step at a time, and then trying to enjoy the process rather than focus on the end goal or the destination. And if you follow through, I mean, then you'll feel much better, you know, at the end of the whole journey. So absolutely, I can relate. And it's something that every now and then I need to remind myself because I can get very obsessed with
Right.
those things. Well, Lesley, I had such a fun time. I enjoyed all this knowledge from somebody who is like a beast of an athlete. But where can people find you if they want to? I know that you coach different things. I've mentioned either the deep end or just coaching kids or coaching adults. Where can they find you if they want to work with you?
Yeah, so easiest is probably Instagram. I don't post a lot, but I'm reposting deep end fitness stuff all the time. But I'm _@_heart.les, LES. And I again am a real big proponent of deep end fitness, and then coaching swimming just kind of in different areas around town in Austin. And then do personal training outside of that. And so
Good. I'll definitely gonna put that in on the show notes, and you're probably going to have a new student.
yeah,
I need to get myself. I need to get myself and definitely do it.
you can do it,
I've been
Daniel.
putting
You can do
enough.
it.
I've been putting yeah, I've been putting enough. But yeah, at least maybe know the swimming lessons right from the get go because I don't have the time now. But I don't know how long these classes take from deep end. I don't know how long they run, but
It's 2 hours every Sunday at the Westlake Pool,
so
10 to noon. You can do it.
I guess I guess I
Yeah.
can do
You
that.
got nothing
Yeah.
else going on Sunday morning.
Well,
I know.
yeah, well, a lot of editing
Uh-huh.
and all that, but I can move things around. I can move things around. But yeah, I mean, once again, Leslie, appreciate your
Yeah,
time, and I had um, it was very fun to have this chat
absolutely.
with
Thank
you.
you, Daniel.